other question I have is, and this is something very current, the weaponizing of the Justice Department. And I find it rather ironic that a former president who used the IRS to go after his own enemies is complaining about weaponizing the Justice Department when it seemed to be part of his toolkit. How, as part of the Justice Department, how do you deal with that? How do you function in that kind of situation?
Yeah, it's first of all, it's crazy and it's hard. If my wife were here, she would say, make sure you remind them that we were audited after I was fired.
Yeah.
And although I did get a $357 refund after I was audited, it cost me $5,000 in accounting fees to realize that I had overpaid my taxes. And so what are you going to do? But the notion, first of all, the weaponization of the Department of Justice, the notion that the FBI is a left-leaning, liberal organization out to target Republicans is so nuts that it's only possible today to say that, right? That in our environment, that grown-ups could stand up and say that about the FBI. The FBI has many challenges, many strengths, and many weaknesses. One of them is not that it's a leftist organization. And so how do you deal with that? All we can do is stand up, all of us, and try to speak truth into that maelstrom. Try to make sure that we don't just become numb to it, because the risk for someone like me, that you're like, oh my gosh, it's so crazy. Who's going to buy that? People believe the lies. And so it's really important that all of us who know the work speak about what it's really like and expose the absurdity of this idea that the FBI is out there targeting Republicans or Democrats.
Yeah.
So the FBI is going to be fine in the long run, because at bottom, the American people, there's a sound identity that's been established with the American people. It'll be okay. But even a diminution in trust has real effects, right? The FBI has to be able to say to someone, if you tell us about this child exploitation ring that you've been drawn into, we will protect you. You can trust us. To say to a cooperating witness in a public corruption case, we are the good people. You can tell us the truth. Stand up in front of a jury and say, I saw this, I found this, I heard this. And if they're seen as this group or that group, instead of a group that's just trying to figure out what's true, it's harder to do the right thing for the American people. So there's costs, even though I believe in the long run it'll be okay.
In terms of law and justice, I mean, the basic premise is we all have to play by the rules. And it seems that Cosa Nostra has always broken the rules to their own end. But it seems to me, and you get into this in the political aspects in this book, the rules don't really matter. What matters is the end game, to get to where you want to go. And so the rules can be bent or broken. Is that a reflection of society in general, or is it, you know, where do we stand today? I mean, and I don't want to make a speech, but I mean, if a particular political party played by the rules, either Merrick Garland would be on the Supreme Court or Coney Barrett wouldn't be on the Supreme Court. The rules just get changed to fit the dynamic situation that we're in. How do you deal with that?
The same way we deal with false statements about law enforcement, we just have to not get tired of pointing it out. And especially making sure that young people understand that rules matter, that they're real, and that the rule of law especially is a real thing. I mean, I think an under-recognized, maybe under-reported story is one of the sources of my optimism about America. The rule of law overwhelmingly has held in this country. Think about the onslaught of lies after the 2020 election. Those were heard in county courts, city courts, state courts, federal courts. And the rule of law held, because the rule of law is not just rules, but it's embedded within a culture where certain things are not okay. You can say anything you want, standing in front of Four Seasons Total Landscaping with hair dye running down your face. Right? You can say anything you want. You can lie your rear end off. But you step into a courtroom, don't you dare. Because there are real consequences to making false statements as a lawyer or as a witness. And the court system, regardless of what the political affiliation is of the judges who are appointed, the legal culture in America is so strong that it really doesn't matter what your political affiliation is. When you become a judge, you are not going to tolerate false statements. Again, in the main, there's always exceptions, but I think we showed that to ourselves and to the country, maybe in a way that people didn't fully recognize. There's a reason that the false claims were defeated all over this country, because judges said, courtroom's open, bring it. You'll get a fair hearing, bring it. And there was no there, and so the rule of law held. I don't know what to make, I don't know what the result will be of the criminal case in the Manhattan DA's office against former President Trump. But what I love about it is, that's what the rule of law looks like. You go to a grand jury, get a charging document, it's presented in open court, the defendant has an attorney, he's going to get discovery, there's a judge. This is what the rule of law is in America, and it's so wonderful that the American people see it after so long having leaders like Donald Trump take a flamethrower to it. So one of the reasons I'm optimistic is I know culture's hard to change. Thank goodness. Because the legal culture of this country, the culture in the FBI, the culture in the military, the culture in our U.S. intelligence community is so rooted down to bedrock that we are apolitical in our exercise of power. We do not tolerate nonsense. That it has been and it will be our saving grace.
Right.
I hope we won't need to test it again, but it'll be our saving grace.
I want to, before we go to Q&A, I want to read. This is your prosecutor and investigator talking about truth. And at one point, Nora says, it's about finding the truth. That's what this job is supposed to be about, right? And Benny says, it is, but in a messed up world, it's also about making sure the bad guys don't get away. And she says, we can do both. But I almost hear, just in reading that, I hear the doubt in her voice. We can do both. Can we do both?
No, that doubt is me there, that I've seen enough to know that bad guys sometimes get away. And for reasons that I understand, some are important structural reasons. We've set the system up in such a way. Some are because rich people, powerful people have an ability to shape processes so that they get away. Right? I can't tell you the number of prosecutors I've encountered who are intimidated by rich people with credentialed lawyers. I can remember saying to my people when I was the U.S. attorney, saying, what, are they going to hit you? I mean, what is it you're worried about? Well, what tends to shape them is they want to go out and work in that world and are worried about, I remember when they were coming in saying, I would commit the worst offense in the world if I indicted Martha Stewart. And by the way, I thought that's what hate was, but I came to learn that hate, that was just a pimple on the hate I would experience. But that part of it was, we are part of a club, we well-connected, powerful law firm people, and you don't want to go sideways with us. And so it really is true that the quality of justice can vary in direct proportion to the quality and influence of your attorney. And so there's a sense in which, so it's more to this notion that sometimes bad people get away. But I'm not cynical about it. I've learned to see that gray, and I'm trying to capture that there. And there's probably more of me in the voice of Benny Dugan, the organized crime investigator, who sees the darkness.
Right.
Thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe to our channel and check out more of our content. Feel free to give your feedback and suggestions on what we should do next in the comments. This is Infinite Lee Productions. We love ya.